computer. Let's do it. Okay. Okay, so it's okay. It's good. All right. So let's start with the poem. So we are doing poem number 82 from Diwan Shams. I read the Persian first, so you can feel you can hear the music of the words, and then we do the English translation. در میان عاشقان عاقل مبا خاصه در عشق چنین شیرین لقا. I hope among lovers there is no worldly intelligent ones, especially in the love of such a sweet face that we would like to visit. دور بادا عاقلان از عاشقان، دور بادا بوی گلخن از صبا. I hope the lovers stay away from the worldly intelligent ones. I hope the odor of dirty mud stay away from the fragrance of the morning breeze. گر درآید عاقلی او راه نیست، ور درآید عاشقی صد مرحبا. If a worldly intelligent wants to come in, tell him don't come in. If comes a lover, tell him you're very, very welcome. عقل تا تدبیر و اندیشه کند، رفته باشد عشق تا هفتم سما. As soon as intelligent finds a worldly way, love goes to the heavens. عقل تا جوید شطور از بحر حج، رفته باشد عشق بر کوه صفا. As soon as intelligence looks for a vehicle to go to pilgrimage, love has conquered the summit of mountain of purity. عشق آمد این دهانم را گرفت، که گذر از شعر و بر شعرا برا. Love came and shut my mouth and told me to forget about poem and come to heaven. So here Rumi at the end says, I talked too much, I went to my mind, and I got away from, I distanced myself from love, so I should go to love. Now, after we read this poetry, we usually go through these exhibits. Is a very express, they express and they tell us, okay, let's understand this egoic mind. God's spirit plus human body made up of soil and stinking mud gives us human being. The human being, two things are made, soul and egoic mind. And egoic mind is I, my name, my belongings, my identity, which is taking from the soil and stinking mud. Egoic mind takes after soil and stinking mud, and soul, the other, let's say, child of the human being, the other attribute, took after God's spirit. And from egoic mind, we have two things: lust for everything, pursuing likes, and anger or rejecting dislikes. So these are the stuff that we are going to learn here. All right. Okay, so that's what it is. Okay. Now we have the Sufi says we have to do moderation on these two things, attribute lust and anger. We have to moderate it as much as possible. Now, before we come to the world, we had nothingness in our core, sense of security, guidance, power, and intelligence. That intellect came from nothingness, and then as we came to the world and we got conditioned by the society, we learned from our surrounding, our parents, and all people around us, our teacher, friends, this and that. These things came to our core. Everything that I can think of, myself, my spouse, the rest of my family, money, everything that I value, profession, social status, roles, hobbies, entertainment, friend, enemy, religious belief, political and social beliefs. These became my core. So as you can see, the religious belief is a thing. It's not a spiritual faith. Religious belief is not spiritual faith. It's a belief. That's very important. And then, so what we are supposed to do, and Rumi that tells us, suggests us to do, and recommend and encourage us to do, to move these stuff in the middle, which are things, to the outside. To the outside, it exists, but it doesn't control us, and it's not in the core. These are the stuff in the outside. And then let's go here, look at other exhibits which are important, and hopefully you're going to learn from them. This is a triangle of change. So in order to change, we have to have commitment, consistency, and repetition. If that's what we do, we can move these dots to the outer space, to the outer surface, and we have nothingness in our core, and keep it this way. So we get sense of security, guidance, power, intellect from the nothingness. Now, this is the triangle of attachment. When we have attachment, when we come to the world, we have attachments, and we get security, guidance, power, intelligence, intellect from the attachment. Now, when we have attachment, we have these things. This stuff comes with it. It's actually, as we call it, judgment, attachments to temporary thing, and we're bound by time, and we're resistance. So when we're attached, we're judging about everything, because you say, if I'm attached to money, if somebody has money, I like him. I judge about him. I am positive about him. I like him. If they are poor, I dislike him. Right? Resistant. If I like an event, if I dislike an event, I resist it. All right, and I'm bound by time, because when I'm in the ego and the egoic mind, I have time comes, time starts there. So I have a material intelligence, and I have past and future. This is triangle of attachment. Now we get the detachment from temporary things. So here we are attached. Now we're going to get detached. So when we get detached and we take everything to the outer surface, we have nothingness. Everything comes from nothingness. Now here we had resistance, judgment, attachment to temporary things, and bound by time. Here we have patience and abstinence, gratitude and abstinence, detachment from temporary thing, and here we had material intelligence. Here we have spiritual intelligence. Here we were in the past and future. Here we are in the eternal present. When we have nothing in our core, we are in eternal present. So this is the reason I'm contrasting, so you can see the difference here between attachment and detachment. Here is adoration. This is like triangle of adoration. You have adoration here, you have grace, and you have attraction, and you have nothingness, and everything comes from nothingness. This is the myth of egoic mind. This is an important exhibit, and this is when we are in egoic mind, which is a myth. It doesn't exist. Egoic mind is created by jumping from a thought to thought. It's like a picture, like a movie. It's like a movie. When you go from thought to thought to thought, attachment to attachment to attachment, uh, a moving picture is created in the mind that we think we are that. So we think we are egoic mind. We think we are ego. We are not ego. We are spirit. But because of the attachment and moving from one attachment to the other, we make this egoic mind. And we have attachment to temporary thing. There's attachment in the middle. We have resistance and judgment. We thought about that. We talked about that before. We have past and future. We are creating obstacles and looking for them. So ego looks for obstacles. If it's not, it makes one. Creating problems and looking for them. Ego looks for problems. If it doesn't exist, it creates one. Creating enemies and looking for them. Any egotistical person, egoic person has enemies. And if there is no enemy, they look for, they find one, they create one. So that's the function, and that's the nature of ego. That's the way it is. That's the way it was made. So everybody has the ego, and all of us have, these are the attributes. There is no difference. Everybody's ego is the same. Now we want to get here to the truth of being human. The truth of this is where we want to go, and we are detaching and returning to this moment. Okay, nothingness is in the middle, is in the core, and we get everything from nothingness. We have patience and abstinence. We have gratitude and abstinence. We discussed that. We're detached and return to this moment. We have eternal present, and we have spiritual intelligence. Now we have joy without a cause. People who have removed their attachments from their ego, they're joyous with no cause, nothing. People who are egotistical, they get joyous for something. If I like money, if I make more money, I'm joyous. If I lose money, I'm sad. But people who have no attachment, um, they they are happy for no reason, without a cause. Enthusiasm for creation, ability to create. These people create stuff all the time. They're creating uh, things for the world. They're creative people. Look at Rumi, has created so much beautiful poetry. Just God knows how many. And in this side, which I forgot to write, acceptance event of this moment. They have acceptance. Okay, so this is the exhibit. I just wanted to go through and to discuss it. Now let's go to the place that we were, because we already have gone to some sessions, and this is where we were last time. Now, this is a very important. I'm not gonna read the Farsi. I'm gonna go to the English. This is from Masnavi, Book 1, poem 3214. There is no worse disease in your soul, O arrogant one, than the fantasy of perfection. That's a crucial, important lesson from Rumi. They, so he's telling us there's no worse disease. This is Rumi. That and then fantasy of perfection. Fantasy of perfection. Look how important it is. And it says here on right after that poem, at verse number 3215, much blood must flow from your heart and eye, that cockiness, self-importance may go out of you. This is the question we put for this session. And he says, so it doesn't go easy. It takes a long time and a lot of pain, to get rid of fantasy of perfection. Whoever has the disease of fantasy of perfection and think that there is nothing wrong with his situation is the worldly clever one. Whoever sees this disease and tries to get rid of it is among the lovers. So we want to be lovers, so we want to get rid of the fantasy of perfection. And we know we have to pay. We have to pay for it. It's not free. There is a cost to be paid. Okay? If you know that you have this disease and you don't do anything about it, you're worldly clever one. This cockiness and self-importance does not go away easily. We have to work very hard to eliminate it. We need to stay away from worldly clever ones and focus and concentrate on ourselves to get rid of the disease. So in order to cure this disease, to heal it, we have to be away from the worldly clever ones, because the worldly clever ones encourage us to have more sense of fantasy of perfection. Now we're going to recite these three verses to understand the distinctions between lover and worldly clever ones. We came to this world to make a mirror, but instead we made the fantasy of perfection. Rumi says we are here to make a mirror, so, so life, God, Master of Universe, can look into the mirror of our heart and see himself or herself. There is no sex here, right? And uh, so why? Because because the Master, the God, life is beautiful and is a beautiful being, and he wants to see his face in the mirror of our heart. Fantasy of perfection gives us the impression that we are the best and have no defects. We are complete. That's what the fantasy of perfection tells us. Therefore, the fantasy of perfection, pain, and worrying about fake reputation come together. You get pain from it, and you worry about your fake reputation, because everybody has a reputation he wants to keep, but it's fake. It's not real. The worldly smart ones do not believe that this attribute is bad and will not serve them well in the long run. If that is the case, so what is destiny? What is the major intellect? If our egoic mind works well, why there is so much war, destruction, and troubles in the world? So Rumi says here that if what we had, this ego was working, why there is so much trouble out there? Why we are ruining our environment? Why there is so much war? Why we make cities and then we destroy it? So obviously this fantasy of perfection, this ego which is in our core, it's not helping us. It's not working. This is another verse. There is poop in the bed of the stream, my man, although to you the stream appears pure. So here Rumi says that everybody has this ego and that his sense of fantasy of perfection, uh, even though the stream looks pure on the surface, at the bottom there is poop. Then here he tells give us the solution. He says, if it is the master full of wisdom, well acquainted with the way that digs a channel for the gardens of the universal soul. So all of us with ego have this poop at the bottom of the stream. He says you need a master full of wisdom to take care of it, to remove it. And in this case, Rumi is the master full of wisdom. We're acquainted with the way. He has gone through the path. He has obtained the salvation, and he's telling us, "Hey, this is the way. I'm going to show you how to do this, and I'm going to help you. I'm going to teach you how to remove this, and he's going to do it for us, as a matter of fact. Who is able to cleanse the channel of his dirty stream, sensual self? Man's knowledge is made beneficial only by God's knowledge." So what he's saying, Rumi, here, he says, you cannot do it because you have ego. Ego cannot cleanse itself. As we say, proverb, the 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 knife cannot cut its own handle, right? So the ego cannot correct itself. It's not possible. Then it says man's knowledge is made beneficial only by God's knowledge. Is God the one, according God's knowledge, can cleanse yourself? That's what Rumi says here. God, and we take it, and we get it through Rumi and other masters. Therefore, we found out that we came to this world to make a mirror, and we are God's workshop. To do that, we have to accept that the egoic mind and minor intellect does not work. Key concept. We have made the fantasy of perfection, and that has created a lot of pain in us. And we have also made a fake reputation and honor for ourselves, and we don't want to dishonor our fake reputation. Everybody has a fake reputation, unless you're pure and obtain the status of salvation. If one has fantasy of perfection, one has poop in his or her core. One has pain. If you have honor and fake reputation and don't see your defects and believe that your egoic mind is perfect and complete, that means you're clever. But you know in your heart that you have fantasy of perfection, and you see your defects, and you realize under your stream there is a hidden poop and perfection, and you poop and pain, and you're not able to cleanse it, and you need God and Rumi's help to cleanse it and expand your heart. Then you are among the lovers, and you should stay away from clever ones. Here, as we still saw in the poem, he's told us to stay away from clever ones, right? If you want to be a lover, stay a lover, stay away from clever ones, and he says how to do it, right? How to do it. God has made fake reputation to be like 100 pound weight of iron. Oh, may one is bound in the unseen chain. So the fake reputation it acts like 100 pounds weight of iron attached to our feet, and we're bound by it, but we don't see the chain. It keeps us bound. It keeps us bound because when you have that kind of fake reputation, in order to preserve it, you do a lot of things, right? And that's what he says. Don't do that. Rumi is giving us uh, uh, a point to think about. Therefore, each individual who has a fantasy of perfection is chained to 100 pounds of iron. Now, why is that? Because if you have fantasy of perfection, you think you're complete. So then you have an honor and a fake reputation. You say, "Oh, I'm perfect, so I don't want. Uh, I have to keep my reputation being perfect." Please don't assume that only powerful individuals have the fantasy of perfection. Not No, a lot of more people like us who lack powerful positions have the same quality. Now, in the case of powerful individuals like kings, prime ministers, and and presidents, it's obvious. It's obvious. But in our case, because we are a common person, it's not that obvious. But we do have it. And if we become a president, we might do worse than the one that we criticize. In conclusion, whoever has fantasy of perfection should accept his wrongdoings and confess to his errors in every walk of life. He should accept the spiritual suffering and minimize the size of his ego and become like a mirror. By reviewing these three verses, we realize that a lot of people are spreading pain and suffering in the world. And we have to examine ourselves and find out if we are spreading pain and sufferings or we heal the wounds. As long as we have ego and we have a sense and we have uh, the sense of fantasy of perfection, we are doing, we are spreading pain and suffering. That's the job of the ego, to spread pain and suffering in the world. That's its job, destruction and spreading pain and suffering. Oh, may a one intoxicated with fire and seeking fire deemed himself absolute light. Here it says there is a lot of people, Rumi, that they are full of fire. They are as bad, they are as painful and burning as a fire and see themselves as light. There is a difference between light and fire, right? Fire is burning, destructive. Light is beautiful and pure and enlightening. That's the difference. He says, be careful. You might think, it's not talking to us. Everything is about us. Hey, you think that you are light, but you are full of fire. Oh, who's not? He is lost unless a chosen servant of God or the pool of God himself lead him into the right way and turn over his life around. So how you can get out of the fire and seeking fire and become light, turn into light by by uh, by being servant of God, by being going and following a servant of God or the pull of God himself, attraction of God, the force of God taking you away the from the fire to the light and turns his light away, turns his life around. It turns the life which is full of fire and pain and uh, destruction and 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 burning becomes a life of fire of sorry a life of light, so that he may know that the fiery fantasy which he mistook for light in the past is but unreal. So the one who has a fiery fantasy and he is a fire and thinks he is a light, he thinks that he is not real. This is not the right path. This is not the correct path. That's Rumi telling us. We are now discussing lovers and clever individuals. We must measure ourselves against these poems. Are you full of pain and spreading it around, or you see yourself as pure, faithful, and holy person? Rumi indicates that the clever person should either expand his heart and open the space and get attracted to God, or some saint like Rumi heals him with the wisdom of his poems and turn his life around. So she leaves the clever ones and joins the lovers and realizes that his illusory ego, which is full of pain, is temporary and fake and is not a part of us. Illusory ego. Ego is an illusion. Let's read some other verses and learn that in truth, the clever ones are servants of evil and Satan. Egoic mind and minor intellect has the intellect of Satan. Now, in minor intellect is the intellect of the ego, is the wisdom, if you can call it wisdom, is the mind of the ego. We are not here to utilize the intellect of egoic mind. If you understand these verses and decide to leave the clever ones and join the seeker of lovers, we should focus and concentrate on ourselves and stay away from worldly smart and clever persons, because they can affect us negatively, and we should try to become like a mirror. We should accept that our egoic mind and its intellect are an illusion and fantasy. And I was not really wise, and I messed up my life. And everybody has done it. Look at around yourself. Look at yourself. If you had ego, you messed up your life, which all we did. We start from ego. As you see that in that exhibit, when we came to the world, we put those uh, attachment in our core, and that created our ego, which is an illusion. But that's what we think we are. We think we are the ego, not the spirit. Oh, this is a beautiful verse from Book 5, verse 3182. These continuous pains are the effect of your own action. This is the meaning of the pen has dried. The pen has dried means the pen derives your action. If you do wrong, the pen writes wrong. If you do right, the pen writes right. Right? That's what he said. The pen has dried. You know, the old days they used to use ink and pen. That's what he's referring to. So this is a very famous verse from Rumi, that your pain is the effect of your action. This verse indicates that whatever happens to us is due to our actions. But since I was clever and worldly smart, I blamed others for my errors and mistakes. One of the job of the ego is blaming. Blaming. Don't blame yourself, don't blame others. That's the work of ego. I was acting like a drunken person and did not take responsibility for my actions. Now I want to become a lover and commit to my true core and work myself and don't worry about others. So the concentration and focus should be on ourselves. Don't worry about others. Everybody is responsible for their own actions and thoughts and attributes. We have to think about ourselves and try to save ourselves. And if and Rumi talks about this, as a matter of fact, let's just go on. Here is another beautiful verse. The ego or fleshly one and worldly desires and the devil both have always been essentially one person, but they have manifested themselves into. Here you go. Ego and devil is the same thing. They are the same thing. Ego and ego and devil are the same. This is Rumi. Essentially one, but they have manifested themselves in two forms. The manifestation, and this is there is a reason for it. Why they have manifested them, we don't know. There is a reason for it, but we have to know that Rumi teaches us devil and ego or fleshly and worldly desires are the same. Then here it seems goes to another concept, like the angel and the major intellect, which were really one, but became two forms for the sake of his God's wide purposes. So here it says devil and ego were the same. Here is he says major intellect and angels were the same too. Okay. Here now another beautiful verse. You have such an enemy as this in your inward part. He is the preventer of the intellect and the adversary of the spirit and faith. This is referring to the ego devil. You have such an enemy. He's our enemy. Ego is our enemy. And it's inside of us, inward part. And he's a preventer of the intellect. He prevents the wisdom of the universe and life work. and the adversary of the spirit and faith. It's against spirit and faith. Now, faith is not religious belief. Faith is alive. Religious belief is a thing, is dead, basically. This is faith. This is spiritual connection. So very different. We know that egoic mind and attachments to the worldly things and pain is Satan. That's what Rumi says. They are from the same essence, and they are not godlike. So the ego or fleshly and worldly desires and the devil both have always been essentially one person, one thing, one attribute, one thing. On the other hand, the expanded heart and the space around events have the same essence as the spirit. That's why Rumi says, expand your heart and create a space around events, because this is spirit, this is light. Therefore, our ego and Satan are the same, and they are from the same essence. On the other hand, expanded heart and God from the same essence. But for the sake of God's wise purposes, they have shown up in different forms. Then Rumi goes on and indicates that your ego is your enemy within yourself and is the preventer of your major intellect and is the enemy of your life and faith. So there is intellect, there is major intellect in each of us, and there is life and faith in each of us, but the ego is preventer. It's blocking it. It's blocking it. If you are in this situation, then you are among the clever ones. If you have anger, fear, jealousy, and hurt, and you always complain and you always want more from the world and focus on others and believe that you cannot change yourself for better, then are the servant of Satan. If you worship worldly material stuff and have the illusion that you are worshiping God, then you are following devil or evil. We should see our godly presence in each other and realize that we are from the same essence. This is a big, big lesson, right? This is a big concept here. We should see our godly presence in each other and realize that we are from the same essence. If I can see the godly presence in me, then I can see the godly presence in you too. Because, if I don't see it in myself, I'm closest to myself. If I don't see the godly presence in me, how can I see it in you? First, I have to see it in myself. The reason we see others separate from us because we operate from egoic mind and we have been severed from life and fall into the trap of comparison. So the ego creates separation, because in reality, all of us, all the universe, not just us human, even animals, plant, everything is one, right? This is the law of unity. Everything is one. The ego says, "Oh, I am Akbar, you are Beta, you are Summer," but in essence, we are the same. Okay, and then when we see each other separate, then we start comparison. Oh, am I as good as Beta or what? This and that. Since we cannot live based on life and our root in existence, then for measuring our value, we compare ourselves to others. So if we are presence, godly presence in us, then we don't compare, because godly presence is infinity. And if you know math, you cannot compare infinity. You cannot say, "Oh, this infinity is bigger than this or smaller." Infinity is not compare. Is not. You cannot compare infinity. So we all are infinity. So we cannot compare. Since we cannot live based on life and our root in existence, then for measuring our value, we compare ourselves to others. Sometimes we feel big and sometimes small. As long as you compare, you cannot be always big. You're going to be big and small, sad and happy, up and down. And when we feel small, we become jealous. And when we feel big, we boast and brag. Consequently, we damage ourselves with the fantasy of perfection. So we alternately feel big and small, and we always feel unstable. In ego and in the fantasy of perfection, we are unstable. We never are complete. We never are stable. Not stable, not complete. Sorry. It's complete, the fantasy of perfection is complete. We are not stable. We are moving from one extreme to the other. I'm good today, tomorrow I'm bad. I feel big today, tomorrow I feel small. I feel jealousy today, tomorrow I brag. Look at the people who, I mean, everybody. The more egotistical, the more of this attribute in us. For God has called the devil sneaky whisperer because he resembles the head of the little hedgehog. You have seen hedgehog, right? He uses hedgehog because it goes with this concept. God has called the devil sneaky whisperer, which is the ego, by the way, because he resembles the head of little hedgehog. He gets out, he bugs you, and then you go after it. It hides in and out, in and out, in and out. Rumi says that devil and Satan, which manifest themselves as ego in us, they come and bother us and sometimes act very obvious and sometimes they're hidden. Sometimes a pain in us shows his head and bites us and hides. We don't see it, but it messes us up. Then we ask ourselves, who messed me up? This destructive force is within us. It is like the hedgehog who shows up and bites us and then runs away and hides. Yeah, this is a beautiful verse, book 3, verse 3, 4063. If the ego or fleshly desires had not trapped and struck you from within, how would the others and robbers have any power to lay a hand upon? So if you are if somebody can trick you, somebody can misguide you, somebody can get you out of the way because there is a fleshly desire trapped you. An ego has gotten you from the inside. If there is no greed in us, nobody can trick us with a sense of greed. That's why, oh, you're going to make $1 million if you do this and that. If you do not have greed in you, you would not follow that kind of people, right? That kind of advice. So that's why if we are if we are if we get misguided because there is greed in us, otherwise we wouldn't affect us. On account of the insistent operator whose lost the heart is captive to greed and loss and danger. And as soon as the heart is captive to greed and loss and danger, then it can get misguided by outsider, by somebody out there. If there is no greed and loss and that in me, nobody can get me, right? Nobody. This is Rumi says nobody can get you. So here, if the ego or flesh desire had not trapped and struck you from within, how would the others and robbers have any power to lay a hand upon you? So how can they misguide you? How can they take advantage of you? How can they mess you up? They cannot. So there is a mess in me, so the others can come and mess me up. On account of that insistent hidden operator, you have become thief and depraved, so that the way is open for the external operator to coerce you. So coercion comes after I have a hidden operator within me, the thief and depraved. So if we get if we get deceived by outsiders, we should look at inside ourselves. I have something there which allows others to deceive me. That's what Rumi says. Rumi indicates that if this ego does not strike us from within, how others have any power to lay a hand upon us? It is because of our own egoic mind that others can bother and trouble us. Due to this insistent operator who is called lust, our heart is captive to greed and loss. This means that the egoic mind initiates greed, anger, and inconvenience. This is the attribute that takes us to the past, and then we get upset over what we did 20 years ago. Because it puts us in the time, past and future, and then we can worry about what we did 20 years ago. Therefore, my core and heart are a slave to this insistent operator, and the mind of Satan will control me. That is why the insistent operator we become thief and depraved and corrupt, and therefore external operator and egotistical individuals can coerce and bother us. Nobody can bother and coerce us unless we have this egotistic, this uh, thief inside us, which is ego, and depraves us and corrupts us. The ego is the one who makes it possible for egotistical individual to coerce and bother us. That's the key concept here. Now you examine yourself. If you are a lover, nobody can bother you. If others can bother you and force you to react, then you are a clever one, worldly, the clever, worldly, smart individual. Inside you, there is a secret operator that you cannot see, and it shows up once in a while like a hedgehog, causes pain and changes your mood, and it darkens your spirit for a few days. For a few days you're upset, and then your mood changes, and you feel better. Therefore, you are among clever ones. Lovers don't have these mood swings, and they are connected to life and always expand their heart. So, as a practical matter, if we have ego, we are not going to be stable. Forget about stability. You're not going to be stable. None of us are going to be stable as long as we have ego. Now, if you want to be stable, so we have to get rid of the ego, and we have to life and spirit within us. We have to be connected to the source, because nothing would be able to shake us if we are connected to the source, right? Then Rumi says, listen to this good counsel in the traditions of the prophet. Your worst enemy is between your two sides. Your worst enemy is between your two sides. This is from a hadith, which is prophet saying, your worst enemy is your egoic mind, which is within you. Our worst enemy is ego, which is within us. Rumi tells us to listen to this saying of Prophet Muhammad and implement it in your life. Your worst enemy is your egoic mind, which is within you. This is the same as ego. This worldly intellect that Rumi says that lovers should distance themselves from, this worldly intellect that Rumi says that lovers should distance themselves from clever ones. This is in Arabic and Farsi, by the Persian. Your most serious enemy is your ego, which is within you. This is the Arabic saying of Prophet. In Chinese, such a magician is within you and hidden and concealed. Truly, there is a concealed magic in temptation exerted by the fleshy desires and ego. There is such a magician in every one of us, right? Concealed magic in temptation. So what is that magic within us? That's the ego, which has uh, which has which has uh, it acts like a sorcery. It took us. It captured us. This ego. Now Rumi gives the solution, but in the world in which are these magic arts, there are magicians who defeat sorcery. So the ego does sorcery, capture us, and takes us to lust, anger, jealousy, and a lot of other things. But there are magicians in this world. That's what Rumi says, that defeat sorcery, defeat the sorcery of the ego. Rumi says there is such a magician within you, and it possesses magical powers. Therefore, these attachments that we have in our core and we view the world through them, it casts a spell on us and bewitches us. Viewing the world through our attachment is the magic of the ego, but it is hidden. But at the same time, there are magicians like Rumi who defeat sorcery. So, as see, the it possesses magical powers. Magical powers. That's the ego. And with the attachment we put in the core, we do work through them, cast a spell on us, and bewitches us. So basically, uh, the ego bewitches us and possesses magical powers, but Rumi says there are magicians like him and other masters who can defeat the sorcery of the ego. And that's why we study Rumi. He's teaching us how to defeat that sorcery. It's not easy. It's not easy. It's not easy. This is a sorcery. That that is cast a spell on us. You have seen in these uh, uh, Disney movies, when the sorcerer puts casts spell on somebody, they bewitches them. It's end of them, right? They make him miserable, and that was basically, what, those movies are the expression of the ego. Everything that they show us in the outside, basically, it's referring to something the inside. And that magician, sorcerer, that's the ego. That's the expression of the ego in the outside. So in the plain where this fresh toxic poison grow, there has also grown the antidote, O son. So here Rumi gives us a message of hope. He says, yes, yes, I told you there is a sorcerer, there is with possesses magical powers, it bewitches us, it's a magician, it's gonna get you, it's inside you, it's dangerous, it's gonna cast a spell on you, but I got good news for you. Yes, there is toxic poison growth in that field, in that plane, but there is an antidote. Oh, my son. Oh, my daughter, there is an antidote. There is a solution. Don't worry about it. He first scares us from the spell of the ego, from the from the from the magical powers of the ego, but then it gives us a sense of hope. Who The antidote says to you, seek from me a shield, for I am nearer than the poison. Oh, that's a beautiful one, isn't it? The antidote says to you, seek from me a shield. I'm give you a shield because I am nearer than the poison to you. This healing power within us is closer than ego to us. Therefore, in this plane, our mind, plane is the mind, which toxic poison has grown. Our egoic mind has grown. Viewing through attachment has grown. This magic has grown. There has also grown antidote. Anti Antidote is the same as expanded heart, connection to life. Before connecting to life, we must start with connecting to spiritual masters like Rumi. So basically, when we connect to spiritual masters like Rumi, it helps us to connect to life. What antidote tells us? It tells us to seek help from it. In this moment, can stay clever and go to your mind and fall into the hole of this magic and allow the hedgehog to attack you and act from your deep devil's mind and turn you into Satan's servant and worship beliefs and things and possess material intelligence and act from your egoic mind. But the antidote is the expanded heart and connection to God. Antidote tells us, seek from me a shield, for I am nearer than the poison to you. Because the antidote is the same as us, it is us, and we are its contribution. So antidote is us, it's within us, it's a continuing in us. It's not separate. It's not separate. It's us. It's within us. We have to access it and uh, uh, let it remove the poison from our heart, which is the ego, devil, and the other things that he says, that Rumi said before. Connecting to life is to use our major intellect, and being like angels, and angels is the same as presence. Presence. Presence means being at the moment, being at here and now. We left presence and turned into Satan's servant. We left presence and turned into servants. Life asked us why you left me and became and think and use your material intelligence. Here is book 3, verse 4078. Here the fresh resource and egoic mind words are magic and your ruin. Here, the fleshly source and egoic mind words are magic and you ruin. My words are lawful magic and they counter charm to her magic. So he says the ego and its egoic, the egos and its magic ruins you. But my words are uh, lawful magic or good magic, basically. Good magic, positive magic, and counter charm to her magic. And we counter her magic, which is the magic of ego. Here it says, Rumi. Are you opening the space in your heart or listen to Rumi or listen to the commands of your egoic mind and jump from one attachment to the other? This will sorcerize you and will ruin you. But my words, which are coming from my expanded heart, this is good magic and counter the poisonous magic. So the other one sorcerize you, sorcery. Therefore, if you operate from egoic mind, you are under the spell of Satan and will destroy yourself and are among clever ones. On the other hand, if you pay attention to these teachings and work on yourself, then you are among lovers. If you want to become a lover, you need to distance yourself from clever ones. This is from Divan Shams, poem number 3055. You that have egoic mind and are clever are like desert, and I, the lover, like rain. You that have egoic mind and clever are like ruins, and I, the lover, like a beautiful city. Accept our service, which is the sunrise of joy. People will not see joy and its effects. He says, accept our service, Rumi service, and people like him, which is the sunrise of joy. People will not see any joy. So, it, because ego is like desert, and ego is like desert, but the masters like Rumi are like rain. The lovers are like rain. And here he says, except our service, which is the sunrise of joy, people will not see any joy. There is no joy unless we follow the masters like Rumi, get rid of our ego. There is no joy. There's no joy. It's going to be ego. There's nothing. Ego is nothing but destruction, sadness, sorrow, and pain and suffering. Nothing. That's ego is made up of. That's not. By the way, this is Rumi. Look at what this is what he says. Look at the word. The more ego in any society, the more miserable. The clever people cannot bring joy to the world. They are like a dead desert, and life and God are like rain. We are like a ruined city, and God who works on us through our expanded heart is like an architect who builds beautiful cities. Unless we open our hearts and join the circle of lovers and serve God and Godness, which is the sunrise of joy, we have no other option. Life tells us that I have arranged gardens and I have established beautiful cities. That's poem number 1502 from Divan Shams. Here, Rumi speaks from the viewpoint of God. Clever ones destroy and ruin, and lovers build. Life through people who have expanded their hearts and utilized the major intellect. Build beautiful gardens. Worldly smart ones are seeking utopia, which they want to build with their minds, but the means corrupts the ends. The ends justify the means. They are seeking noble cause and use their minds justify the means. Every time the cause corrupts the means is the same as their egoic mind, which corrupt their noble cause. See, if the egoic mind thinks that the end justifies the means, so they use everything, and that corrupts the end too. Human beings have not built a beautiful city with using his mind, but the spiritual masters like Rumi have arranged gardens and built beautiful cities with their with their poetry. I mean, this is a analogy. Therefore, human beings, with the help of expanded heart and becoming lovers, can create a world that brings joy to all. Everybody has access to the source of joy, and people see life in each other. People don't see each other as a thing. People don't try to hurt each other and steal from each other. Material things lose their value, and people realize that they took themselves and their egos too seriously and don't do it again. If you, if we are all uh, uh, become more spiritual and do not distance and separate ourselves from others, we don't hurt nobody else. There is a painting in a city in Iran, Shiraz, uh, which somebody is stabbing another person, and the stabber bleeds. What a beautiful picture, right? The stabber bleeds. When we're hurting somebody else, we're stabbing ourselves because we're the same, from the same cloth, from the same essence. We are not separate. This ego, which is an illusion, makes us think we are separate from each other. Therefore, we must try to increase the number of lovers. With the spread of Rumi teachings, the number of lovers will increase. And we know that lovers with their lights, like Rumi, make positive impressions on clever ones. The worldly smart ones only weaken with the punishment of life. So if you are a clever one, you need to start working on yourself and coming to change and allow life to change you for better. So this is why I am doing this in my small, you know, role, attempt, whatever small, it doesn't matter. The light is a light. It can be a light of a big light, big, like a stadium light, or it can be a candle. Up to now, we realize that with the egoic mind, we cannot organize our individual and social life, and history has shown us this fact. On the other hand, we also have realized that individuals like Rumi have connected to life and have created beauty in the world. If we as humans, look, he said something 800 years ago, we're still reading it. Look how powerful his message is, and what a beautiful uh, 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 world he made with his poetry and his vision. If we as humans don't listen to our egoic mind and listen to Rumi, then he will help us to expand our hearts and connect to life and use the major intellect of the universe. Then our life will be orderly and we become like a light which is aligned with life. And our vibrations will help others. If there is one light in everybody's in one's heart, it will lighten the room. It will brighten the room for everybody. So other people can see too. If you have a light in your heart, the people can see themselves and their actions in, due to your light, and they can change for better. But if we operate from our egoic mind, we will destroy the world, and we can see that although humans have made so many laws to prevent wars, we still have wars. And there are a number of individuals who threaten the world to destruction. Let's read some more verses to find who is lover and who is clever one. The clever one wants to show off every moment. The lover wants to lose himself and get enchanted and fall in love with the life and get out of the organization of egoic mind. These are all Diwan Sham's poem number 1957. This is different verses of the same poem. The clever don't want to expand their hearts and drown in the unified space. but lovers want to drown in the ocean of unity. So basically, we are ocean of unity. All of us are from the same cloth. The clever ones looking for some material stuff and getting relief by getting things. But lovers don't want the relief from material things and being a slave to material beliefs. This is Divan Shank poem number 1957. As you can see in these verses, clever ones want to show off and present himself or herself. He asks people to see him and wants to tell others that I exist, and usually show up as fantasy of perfection with a huge fake reputation and a lot of pain and trying to hide his pain. The clever one wants to show off every moment, but the lover wants to disappear and loses himself and get out of his egoic mind and exit the discipline of egoic mind and become selfless. Enchantment means everything. Enchantment means converting into life and expanding heart and becoming the essence of life. But clever one wants to become contracted and shows off. This showing off is pretty much a work of ego. Please look at yourself and see if you are among lovers or clever ones. The lover wants to get rid of his ego, attempts to become the workshop of life, but clever one with his egotistical existence becomes the workshop of devil. He uses the intellect of Satan and becomes his servant and destroys the world. For them, the most important matter is to be seen and making sure that everybody recognizes them. Being seen. That's what ego does. The clever ones don't want to expand their hearts and drown in the unified space. The clever ones don't want to expand their hearts and drown themselves in the unified space. They don't want to negate their egos, don't want to silence their egoic minds. But lovers are always drowning themselves in the ocean of unity. They always recognize their attachments and try to get rid of them with repentance and returning to this moment. They want to become the part of ocean of life. Clever ones are always looking for material gains. They ask, please give me something and bring me relief. Give me some money, buy a gift for me. They want something from everybody all the time. These are the clever ones, which have their big ego. The clever ones looking for some material stuff and getting relief by getting things. They ask for something to relieve their egos. As long as they receive a material gain, they are happy. But lovers don't want the relief from material things and being a slave to material reliefs. They are not looking for reliefs. That comes from getting material gains. They are ashamed of it. I think, Vita, it's enough. Huh? What do you think?
Okay, yeah. This is very beautiful. There are lots and lots of these passages, right?
Yeah.
Each session. Yeah. This is, I think, the best method
Is
to
that right?
read.
Okay. Thank
Yeah.
you. Yeah. I just want to make sure it is more beneficial to you guys. I read the Persian myself because it helps me to translate. But I already have the translation, by the way, and I used with the right words. A lot of these words are not in English yet. I'm trying to because in Persian the Sufi tradition is has such long history. The vocabulary is there. Like Farsi doesn't have good vocabulary for technology because we didn't make it. But Persians made this beautiful poetry, and the vocabulary is there. Even before Rumi was so much, and he uses them and he makes some new. So I'm trying to come up with the right word to explain his. But so you liked it, right, Vita?
Yes, it's very engaging because the poems change one after another. So it's very attractive and entertaining. But of course, the message is one, unity and only oneness. but using different poems, from this angle, or do you get it if I explain it this way or that way, so we can feel his great compassion to inspire the clever ones, all of us, to become like lovers, and yeah, get rid of the illusion of the separation. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. Summer, do you have any comments to make, ma'am? Or you can, or if you want to uh, put it in the chat room, whatever, and I can read it. All right. So, all right. So, if you don't have any other things to say, I would, we would, it's with your permission, I'm going to end. Let's just stop the